We are back. Sam is in studio and really rooting for me to fuck up with the mics, but I think I got them all.
The pressure's on.
I did a good job.
You did a great job.
I just wanted to slow down because I wanted to hear a little bit of this fucking...
You don't have to make excuses.
Let's
You're
just
allowed
listen to
to
this
go
for a
at your
half
own
hour.
pace. For a half hour.
Reach out and touch the sky. Oh, boy, is that good.
Is this the new Kendrick? It is good.
All right, it's a little Supernaut by Black Sabbath.
Oh.
All right, well, welcome back, Sam. We
Thanks,
waited
man.
for you because I forgot you and I texted.
How could you?
Because I always just think about the pictures that we sent each other on Instagram DM.
I see.
By the way, the Tough Crowd video I put up last night, I put it up last night at probably 10 p.m., and it's got 30,000 views already on Twitter. So people really do want to see the show again. We're fucking... Colin and Vault, we are dumb if we don't figure out a way to at least do a few live shows and test the waters.
Just do a Tough Crowd podcast. I mean, if you can get away with using the term Tough Crowd, Colin hosting a podcast with like... I mean, I know it's like kind of the thing that's done, but if you can format it the way Tough Crowd was formatted...
You know,
I think a Tough Crowd podcast would really, really work.
Some networks, or maybe some, some streaming thing. There's so much out there. Why can't you just put it?
It wouldn't because a podcast wouldn't. It was a great idea, but I think it would do better on video just because, like you said, so many shows are doing that kind of podcast, like Bobby's, wherever there's a bunch of guys talking.
Yeah, it would have to be like very.
Chip.
It would have to be very produced.
Yeah,
you know
and
what I
that's
mean.
not
Like
the way we did it.
It would have to be like a very produced. It'd have to be a podcast that was produced like a TV show in the sense that there were segments and sounders and intros and blah, blah, blah.
Part of what felt good about Tough Crowd was the fact that mistakes are made, or the fact that it wasn't smooth and pretty. And Colin was not a perfect host. He was he would trip on words, or we would bomb on jokes, and Colin would make them leave the bombs in there. But that's a part of what made the show work.
Dude, when he would give up on a joke in the middle of the setup, well, he would just be like, I knew that one wouldn't work. We can't even finish it.
Yeah. It would work better now than it did then because it's cheap to produce, and you could divide up those into clips. I can't believe
the politics is why it would be tough.
But the politics is kind of why some people would love it. It would be loved or hated.
Some people would love it, but networks are even less likely now to take anything that's not kind of liberal politically.
Yeah, but YouTube might take it.
YouTube,
HBO.
HBO wouldn't touch it.
Really?
No, and neither will Comedy Central. Netflix, I don't even know if they would touch it.
Maybe Hulu.
Hulu might, but it would have to be one of those things where we were, within reason, allowed to say what we wanted to say, because some people were always annoyed by the show.
Yeah, but anyone who's really going to invest in it is going to get that that's part of the show, don't you think? At this point?
I don't know, man.
Also, you have a lot of different people telling different views. It's not...
That never mattered.
Yeah.
We got a lot of shit even back then.
They don't they like everybody telling the same point of view, from the same... Like when you watch The Daily Show, it's not like you have this wide variety of opinions, right?
Right. Every late night show has the exact same take on everything. Maybe different personalities and different jokes. Right. But how is everyone on late night television 100% on the same side of the fence? It's embarrassing.
Because they watched it work for one guy. They were like, oh my God, how did Colbert become like last place to first place? And now everybody's kind of following suit. This is what we do.
It would be so great to do this. It made me really pumped up to do it again. I had no idea it was happening, and we went out. And again, it was just an hour. It was Colin backstage. We literally all of us literally wanted to cry backstage because it was just weird to have done that with the Tough Crowd.
Did you just watch Nanette?
I'm sorry? No, I cried during the entire thing. But it was a weird thing to have just done that because again, I've done podcast, panel shows and all that, but to have done that with him and to see the Tough Crowd logo up again, it was like, fuck, we just kind of riffed that for an hour.
Especially with the amount of love you guys must have gotten for it.
It was great. Yeah,
Machi would have hated that.
He would have, yes. He would have liked it. Guys, but we used to actually write jokes out.
Oh, yeah, it was a funny show. Although, I mean, that classic clip of
Leary and
Geraldo and Leary,
yeah.
where that's kind of what
amazing.
we do.
Yeah, that's right.
Would you write jokes for this? It's like, yeah.
That was hilarious that Leary thought that was an insult.
Yeah.
What did you prepare?
Yeah.
For a fucking TV show? Yeah.
Well, it was funny that the guys who would go on there, like, it seemed so loose and like you could do whatever, but you had to have, I mean, Dumb Patrice would never write his jokes down, but he was, he was a good enough talker.
Sure.
But he would have everyone had to have stuff because you were with 4 comedians talking about the same subject.
Well, it's also like your time television show, right? Like you kind of have, you can't just make it up as you go because you can't afford that much room to bomb. Like, you can't fuck up an entire episode because nobody's got anything at the spur of the moment.
Tell that to Kathy Griffin.
If you're sitting on a panel with fucking Patrice and Nick and Geraldo, and you're all going to be talking about, okay, Bush did this.
Yeah.
And you're with those guys and Colin, and you think you're just going to go up, like, you better have something, you better have a couple of layers written, because Greg's going to hit an angle, Nick's going to hit an angle, Patrice, everyone's going to be firing shit, so you have to have stuff, or at least ideas of what you want to say, because if you think you're just going to riff and have better jokes than those guys, you're crazy.
What I thought was nice was that even when Colin would slip on a word or two as the host, that you guys as the panelists would kind of just let him go, like, and just kind of support him. Like, you wouldn't want to point it out.
It was so fun to leave. We used to have to submit certain things, like third and fourth act things had to be go through standards and practices.
Were those like the skits and stuff like that?
Those always were, yeah. But once in a while we would have a thing where Colin would give us a quiz or whatever, and it would be riffed or just improv. And other times we would have it. So one time I submitted this thing that wasn't particularly good. It was a Pac-Man joke.
Like the game?
Uh-huh. And in the joke, I made the Pac-Man sound.
What year was this?
Oh, no.
2003 or 4.
So Pac-Man wasn't at its height of popularity.
No, I don't remember. Can you look that up? It might even be out there. And it didn't do well. I'm very embarrassed by it.
Any commitment, when you're not an act-out comic and you commit and it doesn't work, it's one of the worst feelings.
Right, because this is you're out of your comfort zone anyway.
It's a weird feeling. You're like, I'm being kind of vulnerable. I'm going for that sound effect, and they just stare at you. You're like,
this is why I don't.
Go to videos. Scroll for videos.
So, were you just like looking at the camera and making this joke to camera?
No, to Colin.
I hope you can find it, because I really want to hear this Pac-Man bit.
It was not.
Colin knew it was coming.
Oh boy, did he!
And he didn't stop you from that.
No.
So this is how beautiful that show was. That in the back room, you submitted a joke that he knew wasn't going to work, and he didn't say a word.
No. Go to Jim Norton Tough Crowd. You tried Pac-Man?
Yeah. That is funny that it's his own show and he's encouraging someone to eat shit.
Yeah, he's just looking at it. He knows this isn't going to work, and he's like, okay, go for it, Jim. Yep, nope, approved.
See if it's that one. Let me zip through it.
Wesley Clark.
Just see if you can zip through, Sally. I'll tell you where it's
Wesley Clark. This really dates itself a little bit.
That's why it never got
General
released.
Clark. Oh my God, Jim.
It's okay. You didn't take it too far.
No, I don't know. Just keep jumping through it.
Jim,
I thought it was me and...
You look 10 years younger now than you did then.
Really?
Yeah, dude.
He's very fat then.
Catching us in a little lie. Well, I'm talking about that.
Oh, Jake Johansson.
Great comic, man. 40-something Lettermans?
Yeah, no, 47, I think.
Norton should go back to stupid. Take your 140,000
Oh, Lynn
million
Coppins.
and leave, dummy. Go ahead. Oof. Well, I think this whole thing is...
He just looked at him and said, oof, because he didn't get a reaction.
But he was the...
People actually suing Grand Theft Auto. The makers of Grand Theft Auto, because a couple of teenagers reenacted what they saw in the game, went out and shot people, and now their families are suing Grand Theft Auto. And this has nothing to do with bad parenting. I mean, it could happen to any of us, because I remember when I was a teenager, I was arrested for painting my face yellow and running around yelling waka waka after playing Pac-Man.
Shh. Nobody say anything. It
got a little chuckle. Please. That will look much better when it's finally
Audience,
edited.
please, let's give him an honest appraisal.
I said
Did you say you paint your face yellow and you waka waka like Pac-Man?
I did say that, yes.
You don't think that was kind of an insult to every comedy fan that took the time to come down to the joke stunk.
You know, I did stink. I apologize to you. You at home, this will probably never make the air, but if it does, I'm sorry. That joke was awful. I mean, granted, I'm not smooth enough to shove food into my fat face and bang my groin.
Were you surprised when it made air?
No.
No.
It was not. That was, wow, good
great.
fight. That came up pretty quick.
That's that's like the beauty of that show, though, that you would just address the bomb. Like every other show is so overproduced now.
You addressed the bomb.
Yes.
It was sloppy. Because it was honest. It tried to be. We tried to make it honest, which is comedy is not always beautiful. There's times where you trip on it. There's times where it's ugly. It's flawed. It is what it is.
I always thought it was like, you know, just as a viewer, I was like, Comedy Central is finally doing a show where comedians get to be comedians. I was like, this is the show that should be the purpose of the network at the time.
Yeah, I mean,
Right?
and the fact is, we were on right after the Daily Show. I think it was right after the Daily Show. Fuck, that was fun. So if people liked, again, the video I posted was 8 seconds.
That was a great hour of TV, man. That's like when Jon Stewart was like locked in too. That was a good hour, man.
Oh, you know what? It's funny you just said that. Because we did an hour last night. Tough. We just, but it's only a 30-minute show.
It was only ever 30 minutes.
It was 22 minutes with commercials.
Yeah.
There's no way we couldn't fucking bang out an amazing 22 minutes. It would be funny, and a lot of people would be angry by the takes. People would take, but I think we should try it again. It's like we've talked about it for years. Why not? What else are we doing?
Especially as easy as it is to now create your own content and find a venue for it.
Yeah. And Colin was so funny last night as the host, just off the cuff. I mean, just so funny. No writers, nothing, because everyone had writers. You had to write for the monologue. Hilarious.
Dude, we Mackie and I, we can't officially announce this, but we can tease it that we might roast battle each other on Comedy Central.
That's just a tease.
Just a tease.
Just a tease.
He said we could tease it.
So
we might roast battle each other.
I can't confirm or deny those vicious rumors that I would even be seen
Yeah.
on television.
Are you worried that it would bring down your level of celebrity?
I don't want to be associated with him. It's
I
like
see.
Yeah, I understand.
I see. That's got to be
I'm going to
tough.
dig way deeper than Rachel Maddow or Hannah Gadsby, Joe.
Are you really going to make it hurt?
No, we're going to be fun.
Hey, so Sam, I was waiting for you too, because you and I texted a little bit like chums will do.
That's right.
But I did watch Hannah Gadsby's Nanette. Did
Is
she ever explain why Nanette was the name of the show?
All she said in the beginning of the show was that she named it Nanette after a person that she was dating at the time. She said, I named it Nanette before I had actually written the hour, and it was after a woman that I was dating at the time who I thought, oh, she's so interesting, this is going to be easy to get an hour out of. And then that didn't happen, but she didn't change the name.
I wonder if there's something they cut out of the special. Like, I wonder if
she started with that and said that it's not going to be related to the show.
But she named the show a certain thing before she wrote the hour, but before the special is aired, you could have. I don't know. I thought that it felt like there was something that was incomplete about that.
Just the title, you mean?
Yeah, we saw we watched it because so many people had opinions on it. Comedians were saying, and by the way, anyone who thinks it's the death of comedy, I have not read anything on this. I haven't read her interviews. Any writer who has said this is the death of comedy, you're a stupid motherfucker.
It's really true.
Yeah, go see Joe Mackey if you think comedy's dead.
Oh, come on.
You stink.
Yeah, because it'll prove you wrong.
Attaboy, Joe.
Yeah, Joe. Joe.
Yeah.
Battle.
Boy, this is going to be a good one.
If there is a battle, I can't say.
Don't know. What we should do is try to get it done here before Jeff Ross has a chance to do it.
I totally agree.
That's what I think.
But to say it's the death of comedy, again, I liked it a lot more than I thought I would. But it did nothing. It has not changed comedy at all. It was an interesting thing that she did, and it's definitely worth watching. It does feel like a one-person show towards the end of it. There's things about it I would have preferred she didn't do. But it's fun. It's just a comedy special that has a one-person show vibe at the end of it.
So if anything, it expanded the genre, not detracted.
No, because people don't know how to watch something. And because she's talking about early on, she's going, I might have to quit comedy because I need to tell my story. And it was like, look, she had some horrible shit happen to her, being fucking a lesbian in this Tasmania.
That's crazy.
And being told that it was criminal there, and all this self-hatred. And she was talking about how self-deprecation is not humility, it's humiliation. So she might have to quit comedy because she can't tell her story. She feels like it's selling her story short. But the reality is, you don't have to do self-deprecation.
No, for some people it works, and for others it's like, do whatever kind of comedy you want to fucking do. No, there's no comedy Bible.
Right. You could talk about all of these stereotypes about being gay or looking male or this shitty way you were treated or men being abused without self-deprecating.
Of course.
You don't have to self-deprecate.
The joke can be on the people doing it to you. You don't have to put the joke back on yourself.
Yeah, and she was saying that the joke... She said one thing that was brilliant, but then it flawed her ending. She did a whole thing on art history, which I thought was great. It was very original, talking about how Picasso was kind of a piece of shit, and she knew what she was talking about.
Not a commonly covered subject in stand-up.
No, and so I respected it. I'm like, it's original. Anybody who doesn't she's a very original person. It was very personal.
I kind of wish she'd peppered in a few punchlines in there. At some point in the Picasso thing, I felt like she was doing a show for herself.
A little bit, yeah. Again, it does.
It's like when I start talking about wrestling, and everybody's like, "We've lost the universal appeal of this, Sam."
A little
when
bit.
Mackie starts trashing Ali G.
Yeah, he really was. He went in hard. He went in hard.
What'd you trash LAG for, man?
I don't like any kind of prank stuff.
Oh, is it mean?
Yeah, it's mean.
Well, then don't
Yeah,
drink your coffee.
you and your best friend go around insulting each other, and you don't like it when people are mean to
I'm
each other.
telling the truth
Oh.
the whole time.
So yeah, it was the whole thing. I felt she could have put some, because she was saying that when you say I have to tell my story,
Right.
and I can't. Like, there's things I want to talk about in my act now, and I can't because I can't make them funny yet. There's certain things I have not talked about because they're not funny to me yet. Not in a self-righteous way. I just haven't found the thing that just where I just go on stage one night and it works. So I can't talk about it because who gives a fuck if I'm about my life if I can't make it funny as a comedian?
But couldn't Hannah just write a book?
Right? Or
You know what I mean? Like, do comedy and also tell your story. You don't have to. It's not like comedians get 60 minutes to tell their story, and it better be funny, and that's the only communication you're going to get with an audience.
I haven't seen the special. I don't care. Like if that's what you want, it's your special. If that's what you want your special to be, I just don't like when people are like, "This is comedy now," where it's like, it's got to be that now. There can be jokey specials.
I'm
there
still
can be
gonna laugh
that
when like
special.
a piano falls on a guy's head.
it's always funny. Slapstick is always funny.
Yeah.
But she talked about like how the story, how the laughter, I guess comedy would kind of degrade the point of the story, but that's not the truth.
No, I don't like these rules. Is what I'm
Yeah,
saying.
and I find self-deprecating humor empowering sometimes.
It can be,
But
yeah.
I could not, like, so I don't know if that's a universal truth that self-deprecation it's belittling her for her, but I don't think it's reality for everybody.
I listened to another guy like Trevor Noah's story. Like, well, that guy's had a crazy fucking life.
Yeah.
You know, I can't ever imagine what his life has been like. So yeah, maybe for people like that, maybe it is belittling. But for someone like me, it's I love self-deprecating jokes.